She thought I was blind to her lies, but patience was my weapon, and justice was mine. Every move she made to steal my business was recorded, and she didn't see the consequences. My name is ZAHA. I'm 55. This is my story. I had always trusted my daughter, thinking family meant loyalty, understanding, and love. But that morning shattered everything. I walked into the office, expecting the usual greetings, only to be met with silence. The receptionist avoided my eyes, whispering something under her breath as I passed. Welcome back to your ultimate destination for gripping revenge stories, family betrayals, shocking betrayals, and emotional justice. Subscribe now and join a community, and tell us where you're watching from. Turn on the notification bell for our next story. Are you ready to witness the ultimate payback? What's going on? I asked, my voice steady but cautious. She said you're unfit to manage the company, Mrs. ZAHA. The receptionist stammered, eyes darting nervously. I froze. Unfit. My mind raced. Who told you that? She your daughter, ma'am. She filed papers, said you're incapable of running the business. I felt the floor shift beneath me. Capable? Incapable? My hands shook, not from fear, but from the surge of rage bubbling inside. My own daughter, trying to strip me of everything I had built. Every late night, every sacrifice, every ounce of blood and sweat. It was all on the line and she wanted it, thinking I wouldn't notice. I stormed into her office, determined, but careful. The look on her face told me she thought she had won. Zara, I said, voice calm but icy, we need to talk. She didn't flinch. She smiled that false, practiced smile. Mother, I'm only trying to help. You've been overwhelmed. Maybe it's time someone younger, more energetic, takes over. I laughed, bitter, sharp, cutting through the tension. Overwhelmed? I've built this empire from nothing. And you, my own daughter, think you can take it by twisting lies in paper? Her eyes narrowed. It's business. I'm just making the tough decisions. I leaned forward, my gaze fixed on hers. No. This isn't business. This is betrayal. The next hour was a whirlwind. I demanded every document, every signed paper, every email, every meeting record. She tried to lie, to cover her tracks, but I had already sensed the pattern. The whispers of deceit were all around me, hidden in contracts, in signed notes, in hushed phone calls. I left her office with a new determination, heart pounding. This wasn't just about the business. It was about trust, respect, and sending a message. Betrayal has consequences. That night, I sat alone in my study, reviewing the files I had pulled from the safe, the emails I intercepted, the contracts she had manipulated. Each lie, each attempt to cheat, fueled the fire burning inside me. I was not a mother who would be undermined by her own child. I smiled softly, almost to myself, knowing the next steps. I would confront her, not with anger, but with calculated truth. Every move she made would be exposed, every deception revealed, every lie accounted for. She had underestimated me. She thought my love would blind me. She thought my patience was weakness. But patience is a weapon when wielded correctly, and love doesn't mean submission. It means understanding, strategy, and resolve. I would fight back. I would reclaim my empire. And she would learn painfully that betrayal cuts both ways. ZAHA knows the truth. But can she gather enough evidence to stop her daughter's takeover before it's too late? Watch Act 2 to see how a mother's cunning begins the fight for justice. I spent the night pacing through my study, surrounded by files, emails, and contracts. Every detail mattered. Every paper held a clue, a piece of the puzzle my daughter thought she could manipulate. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the electricity of a plan forming. I whispered to myself almost like a mantra. She wanted control. I will give her consequences. The next morning, I entered the office as usual, pretending calm. My daughter, Zara, looked up, trying to radiate confidence. I returned her gaze evenly. Morning, I said softly, letting the words hang in the air. She hesitated, caught off guard by the serenity in my voice. I spent the day observing. I watched her interactions, every phone call, every conversation, every glance she exchanged with the employees. She had assumed no one was paying attention, but I was. I saw who she leaned on, who whispered in her ear, who helped her falsify documents. Every ally she had, I silently noted. Every lie she told, I recorded mentally. And in some cases, literally. By mid-afternoon, I had pieced together the exact sequence she had used to try to oust me. Contracts were altered. Signatures forged. Emails drafted to confuse the board. It was audacious, reckless, and stupid. I smiled quietly. She had underestimated me. My love for her blinded her judgment, yes, but my intelligence and experience gave me an edge she would never see coming. I called my trusted assistant to my side. "We're going to need every shred of evidence," I whispered. "Emails, digital signatures, contracts, voice recordings. Everything she touched, we examine. And we do it quietly. No one can know yet, especially her." The plan had begun to take shape. I would not confront her openly, not yet. The revelation had to be surgical, precise, and undeniable. I would let her continue her charade just long enough to ensure the board, the employees, and anyone involved saw the truth clearly, without question. Evening came, and I stayed late, combing through documents, marking inconsistencies, gathering proof. Every forgery, every deceptive email, every attempt at manipulation was catalogued. It wasn't just about protecting the business, it was about teaching a lesson. A daughter who betrays her mother, a child who thinks entitlement allows theft, must face accountability. I paused and looked at her office across the hall. The lights were still on, her silhouette hunched over her laptop, unaware I had noticed everything. She thought she was safe. She thought I hadn't realized. But I had. And soon, she would learn the cost of her audacity. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes briefly, letting the calm of preparation wash over me. Revenge, carefully calculated, is not about rage, it's about patience. It's about letting the guilty reveal themselves through their own actions. And she had already begun to do just that. The night ended with me sending a quiet email to the board, subtly requesting a review of all recent decisions and contracts. Nothing obvious, nothing accusatory, just the seed that would grow into undeniable truth. I whispered to myself as I turned off the desk lamp. She wanted control. She will get accountability. Zara thinks she's winning, but Zaha's silent strategy is about to unravel everything. Watch Act 3 to see how a mother's cleverness exposes betrayal in ways no one expected. The morning started quietly, deceptively calm. I walked into the office with a coffee in hand, my smile soft but my mind sharp. Every step I took was deliberate, calculated, because today, the first cracks in my daughter's scheme would begin to show. Zara looked up as I approached, attempting confidence that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning, Mom," she said, voice a shade too cheerful. "Morning," I replied evenly, letting my gaze linger a moment longer than necessary. She flinched slightly. That was the first sign. The first tremor of fear. I called a meeting with a few senior employees under the guise of discussing operational improvements. I watched carefully as Zara joined, ready to dominate the discussion, ready to assert her control. But she didn't notice the expressions of hesitation on the team's faces. The emails I had subtly leaked to them overnight, highlighting inconsistencies in her reports, had already sown seeds of doubt. "Zara," I said casually, "can you explain why the quarterly report on client accounts shows discrepancies in signatures and approvals?" Her composure flickered. I don't know what you mean," she stammered. I pulled a printed copy from my folder, laying it on the table. Every signature she had forged, every approval she had manipulated, was marked in red. The room was silent. The employees' eyes flicked between us, sensing the tension, sensing the betrayal they had quietly suspected but couldn't prove. "I'd like to understand, Zara," I continued, voice calm but laced with steel. "Because from what I can see, there are several instances where actions were taken without proper authorization, including altering contracts to remove me from decision-making." Her face paled. "Mom, it's not like that. I just—" "Stop," I interrupted sharply, my tone slicing through the room. "I don't want excuses. I want the truth. Every manipulated contract, every false email, every misrepresented decision now." Zara swallowed hard, realizing she was trapped. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for the papers, but I held them firmly, keeping her exposed. It's complicated," she whispered, voice breaking. "I thought I was helping. I wanted to take some burden off you." I leaned forward, voice low and precise. "Helping? You call lying to the board, forging signatures, and trying to take control helping? You underestimated me, ZAHA. And now everyone sees your deceit." The employees shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances. They had always respected me, always trusted me, but witnessing this betrayal firsthand was jarring. I could see their loyalty beginning to pivot, toward truth, toward justice, toward me. I allowed a pause, letting the weight of the moment settle. ZAHA's eyes welled with tears, the false confidence gone. She realized that patience and strategy had outmaneuvered audacity. I pulled my phone from my pocket, calling our legal consultant discreetly. "Prepare a full review of every decision she's influenced," I said softly. "We need evidence, undeniable proof. And have it ready for the board by morning." I hung up, turning my attention back to ZAHA. "The next time you try this, there will be no room for misdirection. Every move you make will be exposed. Consider this your first and last warning." Her lips trembled, no words coming. She had finally realized the depth of the storm she had stirred. ZAHA's lies are unraveling, but will ZAHA have enough evidence to completely reclaim her business and teach her daughter the ultimate lesson? Watch Act 4 to see the tension reach its breaking point. The boardroom smelled faintly of polished wood and tension. I walked in deliberately, every step echoing in the silent space. ZAHA was already there, seated at the head of the table, attempting to mask her anxiety with that practiced air of control. It didn't work. "Not today." "Good morning," I said, voice calm but sharp, carrying across the room like a warning. The employees turned to me, expressions neutral, but eyes alert. Everyone sensed the storm that was about to break. ZAHA looked up, forcing a smile. "Morning, Mom," she said, voice tight. I ignored the pleasantries, pulling a folder from my bag. "I thought we should review some recent decisions regarding client contracts and financial approvals," I said, placing it on the table so everyone could see. Her eyes flicked toward it, a flash of panic betraying her composed facade. "Mom, what is that?" I smiled faintly, leaning slightly forward. "Evidence. Proof of every action taken without my authorization, every forged signature, every attempt to manipulate this business for personal gain. I thought it was only fair everyone here sees the truth." Gasps whispered through the room. A few employees glanced at each other nervously, the betrayal now undeniable. ZAHA opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. "No, ZAHA. Today you're going to listen. You're going to understand the consequences of betrayal. And you're going to see that patience, strategy, and truth are far stronger than deceit." I began presenting each document, each email, each altered contract. Every action she had taken was methodically laid bare. Her attempts at manipulation crumbled under the weight of evidence. Her face drained of color, eyes wide, lips trembling. I didn't mean," she started, but I held up my hand. "No excuses," I said, voice cutting but calm. "Intent doesn't erase actions. And trust, once broken, must be rebuilt, or it is lost forever." I looked around the room, letting the weight of my words settle. The employees shifted, nodding subtly, realizing where their loyalty belonged. Not with a liar, but with the one who had preserved integrity, me. ZAHA's shoulders slumped, a mixture of shame, fear, and reluctant respect washing over her. I thought I could do better. I was wrong," she whispered. I allowed a brief silence before speaking again. "You were wrong, yes. But acknowledging it is only the first step. The next step is action. Rebuilding trust. Accepting guidance. And never underestimating the consequences of deception." I closed the folder with a firm snap, letting the sound echo through the room. "From this moment forward, the responsibility is yours to prove you can act honorably. And I will be watching." Her eyes glistened with tears, but there was a spark, a flicker of understanding. She had seen the cost of betrayal, and she knew it was real. I left the boardroom slowly, each step measured. Behind me, I could feel the tension in the room, the weight of truth settling like a stone. This confrontation wasn't just about documents. It was about showing her that patience, strategy, and persistence always triumph over lies. ZAHA has been confronted, but will she truly change? Or is there one last test ZAHA must set to secure her victory? Keep watching to see the mother's ultimate strategy unfold. That night, I didn't sleep. The house was quiet, but my mind raced with the next steps. Confrontation had revealed her lies, but confrontation alone would not ensure change. I needed a strategy that left no room for doubt, a lesson so clear it would be remembered for a lifetime. I sat at my desk, reviewing every interaction, every email, every contract. I had evidence, yes, but evidence alone wasn't enough. It had to be undeniable, orchestrated perfectly to show her the consequences of betrayal. Early morning, I called a private meeting with our legal consultant. Prepare a full audit of all company transactions influenced by ZAHA, I instructed. Every irregularity, every deviation, every attempt at mismanagement must be documented. And make sure it's presented in a way she cannot dispute. By mid-afternoon, the audit was ready. I held the thick folder in my hands like a weapon. Not a weapon of violence, but of truth, accountability, and justice. I walked into the boardroom, ZAHA already seated, fidgeting nervously. Her eyes flicked toward the folder in my hands. "Mom, what is that?" she asked, voice shaking. "Evidence," I said simply. "Evidence of every attempt you made to manipulate this business. Every lie you told. Every betrayal you orchestrated. I think it's time the board, and you, understand the full scope of your actions." I laid the documents on the table, flipping through pages slowly, deliberately. I let each page, each proof, speak for itself. The expressions of shock and disbelief from the employees behind her fueled my resolve. This was the culmination of patience, observation, and strategy. ZAHA's face was pale. She stammered. I didn't think. I thought I could manage." I cut her off gently but firmly. Thought isn't action. Deception has a price, and it's not negotiable. What you did was serious, and today you are going to see the weight of it. Then, I handed copies of the audit to the board members, ensuring every irregularity was visible. There was no denying the truth. Every forged signature, every misrepresented contract, every lie was exposed in vivid detail. The room was silent for a long moment. I felt the tension, the weight of betrayal now fully reflected back at her. She had no defenses left, only acknowledgement. Finally, I spoke directly to her, voice low but firm. "ZAHA, you wanted control. You tried to take what I built. But control comes with responsibility, and responsibility demands honesty. If you wish to rebuild trust, it will not be through excuses, manipulation, or lies. You must show integrity and dedication. The choice is yours." Tears streamed down her face, but there was humility now. She had learned the lesson I intended. Not through anger, but through truth, patience, and the undeniable exposure of her actions. I stepped back, letting her absorb the reality of the situation. The board members nodded subtly, their loyalty realigned. Integrity had prevailed, and justice had been served. I finally allowed myself to breathe. The storm had passed. Betrayal had been met with strategy, deceit with patience, and lies with truth. And through it all, I had preserved not only my business but the principle that family bonds do not excuse dishonesty. ZAHA reclaimed her business and taught her daughter the consequences of betrayal. What would you do if someone close tried to take everything from you? Comment below and share your thoughts. Subscribe for more real stories of betrayal, revenge, and ultimate justice. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.